Good evening, Golden. I'm Mayor Laura Weinberg, and with me here is City Manager Jason Slowinski, and we are back again for another community briefing, followed by a question and answer. So if you have some questions for us, you'll be able to submit those via email or through the Facebook Live stream. But first, we'll give you some updates. It's been a week since we were last here, and last week was the announcement of the stay-at-home order. So that has been in place now, not quite a week. It went in place last Friday morning, and I wanted to start off and just say thank you to all of you in Golden for doing your part, staying at home and helping to reduce the spread of the virus. Over the last so many days, I have seen so many people enjoying the outdoors, taking walks, a lot of dogs getting walked, which is, I'm sure, making those dogs happy, and everybody really practicing safe social distancing. So really keeping that separation on the trails, on our streets, on our sidewalks, getting outdoors while still remaining safe. I do want to remind everyone that under the stay-at-home order, to keep your trips out of your home to just the essential activities. I have heard from other communities of people who are doing essential activities like visiting grocery stores and hardware stores, but doing so for one item or just to browse the shelves and get out of the home. This is not what the stay-at-home order is intended to do. Having a lot of additional people in the stores is creating stress for the employees at these essential businesses as they have to go to work and are concerned for their well-being. So please, when you do leave the house for essential activities, keep your trips to a minimum for their safety, the folks working at the business, as well as for your own. And on that note, I do want to thank everybody who is on the front lines working at our essential stores and in essential roles, including our Golden City staff who are working to keep all of our city services running. Also, the healthcare workers who are working incredibly hard in very difficult conditions. So to all the nurses, doctors, and medical staff in Golden, I want to say we in Golden appreciate you, and we are here to support you. A couple of numbers that I wanted to share from the Jeffco Public Health website, where they're tracking the cases in the county. The number of cases continue to increase in Golden, in Jefferson County, and in the state. As of earlier, just after 4 o'clock, the number that the county attributes to Golden is now at 34 cases, which is about 9% of the county. Please note, however, that the numbers are for all locations with a Golden address, not just those in city limits. And the greater Golden area, all those homes that have Golden addresses, has a much higher population than just the homes in the city of Golden. So the stay-at-home order means that all non-essential businesses are closed now. We've seen good adherence to those rules in Golden with our businesses. But this has been devastating for our local businesses. All levels of government are working on ways to best help those businesses that have been impacted. And information about the programs, the resources from the Federal Small Business Administration, the state of Colorado, Jefferson County, and the city of Golden are all available on our Guiding Golden website. If you are a business, there is a meeting that is being held virtually that is hosted by the Jeffco Business and Workforce Center and the Jeffco Business Resource Center on COVID-19 funding options. That is being held Friday morning at 9 a.m. So if you are a business interested in getting some more information from the SBA, from business funders about the different options, please visit reach out to the Jeffco Business and Workforce Center to get some information. I'll also give you a contact person and phone number. And this is Naveen at Jeffco Business and Workforce Center at 720-878-7637. Along the lines of programs supporting business, last week, I think on Friday it was, Golden's Downtown Development Authority met and voted to use some of the additional taxes that are assessed on their downtown properties to assist impacted downtown businesses pay their April rent. So information about that program and on how to get connected if you're a downtown business is on the Guiding Golden site. Thank you, Downtown Development Authority, for meeting so quickly and working to address some of these immediate needs for our businesses. Additionally, the city is working with the Downtown Development Authority as well as Golden Urban Renewal Authority, GURA, to fund a citywide business recovery loan program for small businesses impacted by COVID-19. The program would complement the recently announced SBA crisis loans and help to address those businesses that may not be eligible to access those federal funds. So this idea is moving fast, lots of conversations happening, and expected to present it to council hopefully at our next meeting later in April. Moving on to kind of the resources, not for businesses, but for individuals in need. And I have to say that the outpouring of support from our Golden community has been incredible. If you are looking to help others, you can make a donation at helpgoldennow.org. Those donations are going into a special COVID-19 fund. One of the new programs that is being supported by these donations is the Be Golden program, which launched last week. It is up to serving 100 restaurant meals a day, plus additional sack lunch meals and grocery sacks from our Golden food pantries. So this program is helping people in need of a meal in Golden, folks who have been impacted, and they're getting great food from our local Golden restaurants. The impacts of layoffs and the quarantines has made accessing food a challenge in our community. So the Be Golden program is also working on providing delivery to those who are at home, as well as the drive-through location for those who are able to get out and about. And the program and all the supporters and everybody and the restaurants, the business community, all the volunteers who've stepped up, thank you for all that you're doing to make sure that the people in Golden are not going hungry each day. I've been talking to folks about all the resources and needs and programs and what's it's going to take for the city to address the needs right now as well as going forward. And I'm looking at this crisis and the efforts that are happening as short-term, mid-term, and long-term. Short-term is helping people who are hungry today. Those folks who have lost their jobs, don't know how they're going to pay for groceries, don't know how they're going to get a meal for their family. Those short-term needs of how do we address that today? Midterm is assistance for people unable to pay their rent or their mortgage. How do we provide that assistance so that these monthly payments that are due on rent and mortgage can be addressed and people aren't losing their housing? Long-term is the economic recovery to quickly get people back to work and businesses up and running. And we are going to need all of these efforts. We're putting together, or we have put together teams working in all these areas so that we can have a coordinated response in our community with all of our partners engaged. Everybody has great ideas, and bringing them all together to work hand in hand is going to make the best progress for our city on these recovery efforts and on meeting the immediate needs. And today's April 1st. I don't have any good April Fool's jokes or tricks or anything, but it is the official count day for Census 2020. 2020. So you should have received a letter in the mail with your census ID. You can go to my2020census.gov to fill it out. It takes less than 10 minutes. We did it in my house. It was about 6 minutes, I think, to get it done. Online and over the phone responses are extremely important given the fact that they've suspended in-person outreach at the moment. If you don't have your letter or prefer to complete it over the phone number for that is 844-330-2020. More information is available on Guiding Golden under Census 2020. For some fun at home, or at least I thought it was fun, you can look at the response rates across the state and county, and actually the whole country if you'd like to compare Golden with where maybe you used to live at some other point. I'm really proud of Golden. We have a 49.8 self-response rate when I looked this afternoon, which is better than the 40.3 statewide response. But it isn't the highest in the state, and it's not the highest in the county. I was very disappointed to see that the city of Arvada has a higher response rate than the city of Golden. So Golden, your mission is to complete the census if you haven't done it yet. Make sure our response rates get higher than the city of Arvada so that I can have the chance to get after Arvada's mayor a little bit about how much better we are in Golden in so many ways. And I also wanted to touch on some of what's going on with City Council. So we have pushed back our next meeting to April 23rd, but that doesn't mean that City Council and your council representatives aren't working on city business. Everybody is, and all councilors are available by phone or email. So if you have a question, a concern, everybody is still available for that conversation. Our April 23rd meeting will be a virtual meeting. It will be a public meeting, and we'll make sure to have details about how that meeting will be conducted and how people can join or ask questions well in advance of the meeting. City Council is continuing with our process to select new boards and commission members. We will be conducting virtual interviews on April 9th and 16th. So similar to our original schedule of holding interviews, they will just be virtual at this point. This will still allow us to seat new members in May, as we had originally planned, as the existing term-limited or termed-out members are finished. The other City Council business that I wanted to mention, since we haven't had a city council meeting in a couple of weeks, our district councilors, Councilor Trout and Mayor Pro Tem Brown, will be holding their monthly Coffee with a Councilor. They'll be holding it virtually this Saturday at 10 a.m. So you can fix yourself a cup of coffee at home and join them online. And for some other fun things you can do from home is a lot of online classes and offerings from your city, from a lot of the cultural organizations around Golden. The Golden Community Center is offering online fitness classes, so if you need to get moving and get some exercise, check those out. The Golden History Museum is offering daily videos, everything from baking with the museum director to being introduced to some of the chickens that are at the history park. There's a lot of great content being produced. And many other groups are also offering classes, history classes, online learning, and some fun videos. So if you're looking for something to do, check out what's happening and being produced here in Golden. And that is all that I wanted to touch on. So I'm going to turn it over to our city manager, Jason Slawinski, to touch on some of what the city is doing. And then we'll come back and be here to answer your questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. Glad to be with you, and I hope all those that are watching are safe and healthy, and we thank you for tuning in once again for this. As the mayor said, last week, the state issued their public health order to stay at home. And with that action, the Jeffco Public Health Department rescinded their public health order, which left some questions about enforcement on that. And so just a quick update on, we've got a little bit of clarity on that point. Any alleged business violations of the state's public health order should be referred to the local public health agency. So in this case, the Jeffco Public Health Department, and they will investigate those and enforce that as necessary. Local police departments, on the other hand, have been taking the lead and responsible for enforcing the social distancing guidelines. So Golden Police Department will take part in that, and to that extent have been out and about in our throughout our city, city parks and so forth, and looking for those types of situations. Our approach in general is to educate first, and to the extent that our police department sees folks out and about in large groups or not following social distancing guidelines, they may stop you and ask you and educate. We're not out to penalize people unnecessarily, and if we continue to find problems or issues in specific areas, we can proceed to civil enforcement proceedings if necessary, or even in a worst case scenario, a criminal summons would be issued. But we haven't gotten there, and I did ask the police chief about our activity over the weekend when there were a lot of folks out and about, and fortunately we only had a few instances where we even needed to talk with people and just educate them on a verbal standpoint, and we have not issued any citations at this point regarding violations of social distancing. So please keep those public health orders in mind. Stay at home when you can. If you are out and about, be mindful of the social distancing requirements. We discussed this week at city staff our upcoming Golden Pride Days event, which typically takes place in May. And since May is right around the corner, we wanted to start talking about that event and develop a plan. It's a little uncertain as to how long some of these public health orders and or social distancing rules will be in place. So our approach is going to be as follows. I think we're going to still have Golden Pride Days, but we'll postpone it till a little bit later in the year, probably towards the end of summer or early fall. And we'll still arrange for some type of yard waste collection point for this spring where you can drop off any limbs or branches you might have as you're cleaning up your yard. But the full-scale Golden Pride Days will take place later towards the end of summer or early fall. And we'll send out dates and make sure the community is aware of it as we firm up those plans. But with the uncertainty of the next month or two, we wanted to not allow it to linger out there and have questions about it, because it takes a large effort on the part of our city employees to put that event on, and quite a bit of planning. And it's really, if you've participated in the Golden Pride Days in the past, you will know that there's little in the way we could do of social distancing at that event, because it's quite the event where employees will help you take large items out of your vehicle and those type of things. So we'll have it this year in 2020. It'll just be a little bit later, and maybe we'll focus on an early fall cleanup as opposed to the full-scale event in the spring. So stay tuned for that. We'll put out information as we put those plans together and firm them up. The Golden Fire Department has issued Stage 1 fire restrictions. If you haven't seen that, that went into effect, I believe, yesterday. And Jefferson County has done the same. And usually we're pretty good about following suit with Jefferson County and coordinating those things. There's not a high risk right now of being a spring and kind of a wet season of fire, but We have had a few days that the conditions have been right for fire this spring, and part of the restrictions are really to help our first responders not be out and about unnecessarily on other types of calls that take them away from helping community members. So please be mindful of those restrictions as they are in place now in the city of Golden. We've had some questions about parking downtown, and I wanted to just touch on that. We are going to extend free parking in the city-owned lots. The mayor's got a great sign here, which will be going up later today, or actually later this week, on our kiosks. So folks will not have to pay at the kiosk. They will not have to put in their license plate information. Street parking, as you know, is still free, and this is all in an effort to try to support our downtown businesses and make it easier for those who want to do a grab-and-go, carry-out type thing from a local restaurant to not have to worry about parking restrictions. So that will put that information out as well, and you'll see that in the next day or two. We had a few questions come up this week about our public restrooms in the downtown area. They are still open. They've been open. They are set to lock in the evening hours, so we've adjusted that a little bit to accommodate folks who might use them later in the evening. So they are locked between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., but during the day they're open, and we do clean them every day and make sure they're in good shape. I've had a few questions come in to the city this week about Fossil Trace Golf Course and whether it should be open or not open. And this has been kind of an unclear area since the state's health order went into effect. The Jeffco public health order was very clear: golf courses should be closed, and we followed that directive and closed Fossil Trace last week. When Jeffco rescinded their order and the state's order went into place, the state's order is not as specific about golf courses. We've been looking for clarity. We've gotten a little bit of clarity today in the sense that the state is going to allow local public health departments to make the determination of whether golf courses should be open or not. So as of now, Fossil Trace Golf Course is still closed, and we are in touch with Jeffco Public Health to get some guidance on whether or not we can reopen Fossil Trace. And if we do reopen it, it'll likely be with a lot of social distancing protocols in place, which we've already worked through logistically. So they are prepared to reopen. We just need to make sure that the local public health department is on board with that reopening. There is some scheduled maintenance work going on at Fossil Trace Golf Course right now. So if we were to reopen, it probably would not be before next week, and assuming we can get the okay from the local health department. As a point of information for the Golden community, the RTD board has approved a limited COVID-19 service plan, which does impact some of the bus routes in Golden. The 16L and 99L bus routes will not be operating during this limited service plan. And my understanding is that plan is scheduled to go into place on April the 19th. So at that point, you will not see the bus service here in Golden. I will just second the mayor's comments on the U.S. Census Bureau's effort to make sure the census is complete. I did mine last night. It literally took all of 5 or 10 minutes. I don't think it was much longer than that. You can do it online. They have suspended their field operations, so they're not going to come around and be reminding you. It's important that you go out and do it, and appreciate you bringing that up as well, Mayor. It's an important point for our community. We did have one question about the community garden, whether the garden off of 8th Street, whether it was still open or not. The community garden is still open, although we've posted it and are encouraging people and reminding them to make sure they're practicing the appropriate social distancing there. And lastly, I have that we have a virtual Ward 4 candidate discussion and conversation with the two candidates who are vying for the open Ward 4 seat. and that is scheduled for next week, April 7th, from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m., and it's being sponsored by Golden United, and you can go to their website, Golden United's website, I think it's goldenunited.org, and register for the forum if you'd like to participate. And we will also broadcast that so folks can watch it live and follow that discussion. So I think that's all I had in terms of city updates. And unless you have anything else, Mayor, we can go to questions.
I think that covered it all. I can't think of anything else.
So questions would be, if you have questions and want to submit them now while you're watching COVID-19 at cityofgolden.net, or on Facebook Live, you can submit your questions as well. And we did have two from earlier. One that I received here is from Judy, who'd like to know more about the cases in Golden reported by the county. Where are the cases, and how did these folks catch the virus, and whatever else we can share. So as the mayor said, the updated numbers earlier for Golden, I think it was 34 in the city, or 34 in Golden, and again, as the mayor noted, these are reported by address, not necessarily in the city, the corporate boundaries of the city. So it could be anywhere in the 80401 or 80403 area codes, which, as most of you know, is close to 60,000 people. So it's not necessarily just the folks in the city of Golden. And as far as details on them, we don't get information regarding specific addresses. I think one of the charts or points of information I did see on the Jeffco Public Health website showed that the majority of these cases are obtained through community spread. So it's just something to be mindful of, and it's exactly why these public health orders are in place and the social distancing protocols are in place as well. And if you want additional information, I think the Jeffco Public Health website is the right place to go. Or covid19.colorado.gov. They've also got information on statewide cases as well, and those are good resources to get the latest. I think they're updated every day. The other question we got was, this one doesn't have a name to it, but whether folks should wear masks. If yes, where and how are they obtained? How much do they cost? What type is recommended? Any information we can provide regarding masks?
And as I'm sure whoever submitted this question knows, there's a lot of news reports and information and about masks and other PPE, personal protective equipment. Right now, the statewide and probably countrywide focus is on obtaining masks and other equipment for healthcare workers who are in direct contact with the virus. There's a lot that's being coordinated at the state level. There were some drives, some PPE drives in the county and in the metro area for people to be able to donate if they had equipment available to them. From the personal standpoint, I think there's more news that I'm seeing that's coming out as to should individuals who don't have the virus, but when they go out for their essential activities, should they be wearing masks? It's a great question for our public health professionals as to the efficacy and what types of masks are the best for individuals to wear who are not healthcare workers who directly exposed. There is a shortage. The governor addressed it in his noon briefing today, and the efforts of the state to obtain sufficient equipment, he outlined. If you are curious or concerned or want to get some more information about whether you should be individually wearing a mask in your personal situation, please do reach out to Jeffco Public Health. They are going to have the best information to be able to answer that question for your situation.
Any questions we've gotten through email or Facebook Live?
Yes, we do have a few questions. Stacy would like to know, can you make sure with everyone walking their dogs that the dog poop bag stations are filled? Some have been empty this week.
So a lot of dogs being walked, I'm seeing. So that is probably a good indication that, yes, they're being walked, and great if they are picking up after their dogs. Please do not use those bags as your gloves, okay? These are for picking up pet waste. I know I've seen online that people are using bags, plastic bags, to open their mail, pump their gas, do other things. We really want the poop to be picked up. So please don't be going and using those for other purposes. That is really not helping to keep our trails and our areas clean from pet waste. I have no idea, maybe the city manager knows how often those are restocked or serviced. I imagine there's a schedule for that.
Yeah, I don't know specifically how often, but I will follow up with our park staff. They are still out and about emptying trash cans, doing necessary maintenance items in our parks. But I will follow up tomorrow morning with our staff and make sure that they are aware that there are some that are running low and we should check them more often.
Okay, we have an email question from Rhonda. We appreciate your updates. Perhaps you can help with this problem. We understand that stores and everyone are overwhelmed right now, but my sister is a senior on Social Security disability and food stamps and is high risk for the coronavirus, as am I, so we have been self-isolated since March 11th. We cannot risk going into stores for groceries. We're ordering things online and scheduling curbside pickup and deliveries. But my sister is unable to use her food stamps card online for online purchases. I'm having to buy most of her groceries for her, but even then she can't reimburse me for them because of her low income. This is creating a financial burden for both of us. I've tried contacting the stores about this but can't get a response. Can you please contact the stores to have their websites updated to allow for these purchases?
Thank you for the question. We are getting a lot more information about food assistance as more and more groups and organizations are providing new services. I was just looking because I had it, but now I don't know where it is. There are a couple of things that are available for folks who are isolated. Hunger Free Colorado is providing vouchers for rides, I think through Lyft, maybe Uber, for folks who need to get to a grocery store and can leave their home. RTD through their Access-a-Ride program. So if you've been a senior or someone who has been using the RTD Access-a-Ride, they will deliver groceries to you. So there are a couple of new programs around transportation for folks. We also have in Golden the opportunity now to provide food pantry delivery for individuals who are not able to leave their home to get to the food pantries that we have in Golden, and that's through the Be Golden program, and information on how to sign up for that. There is a phone number. It's all on guidinggolden.com. Or helpgoldennow.org. And if you click on Be Golden, there's an email address and a phone number of how you can request delivery of meals or groceries from the food pantry. I don't have an answer for the grocery stores. I know that the grocery delivery service is really slowed down because they're getting so many orders. And I don't know how long it's going to take them to be able to catch up on the demand that they're seeing.
And this is a good opportunity also to remind folks how important it is to check on your neighbors and people in your communities, your neighborhoods that might not be able to get out and about as easily. If you suspect they're not, check on them. You know, if you have the ability to do that, see how they're doing. And I think it's, part of the spirit of Golden that we all take care of each other, and we're a community that does that very well. And so to the extent we can make sure our neighbors are okay, or those who have a little more difficult time getting out and about, please do so.
And we have a Facebook question from Tom. Are there any plans for board and commissions to resume meetings?
I imagine we will talk about that when council next meets. We haven't had a conversation as city council, boards and commissions, other than any quasi-judicial matters in front of Planning Commission, can be flexible in their scheduling. So my expectation is that when City Council meets and we work on the virtual meeting and how we can have public participation and work through that, we can start looking at having virtual boards and commission meetings as well, so they can continue working on the important things that they were working on, and likely some new efforts as we work through this crisis and recovery. The folks that volunteer on our boards and commissions always have terrific ideas and are an essential part of helping sort through new programs and new activity needed.
Yeah, and I think we'll be in a position, as the mayor said, to resume at some point, and maybe it's in May. We are testing. Our communication staff has been very good on working with our IT staff and testing different technologies. There's WebEx, there's Zoom, there's GoToMeetings, there's all sorts of ones, and we've been trying to do our best to figure out which one works the best with all of the other systems we have to be able to broadcast out and to receive comments and input. So we're working through that, and we're confident that we'll have a good solution by the time council meets towards the end of the month. And I think, and we'll test it several times beforehand to make sure it's working well. But to the extent that we have that in place, as we get into May and further months out, if this social distancing protocols stay in place, I think we'll be in a perfect position to at least hold meetings virtually.
Okay, and we have a Facebook question from Casey. If Fossil Trace is reopened, could we limit attendance to only Golden residents so that we don't attract visitors from elsewhere in the metro region?
I don't know that we would limit attendance to just Golden residents, but I can tell you that Fossil Trace has put in, even before we close, a number of different social distancing guidelines, and including to the extent of spreading out tea times and things like that to lessen the amount of people that are at the course at any one time and any interaction that they might have. And we'll continue to do that. If it reopens next week or when it's approved to open from Jeffco Public Health, we'll make sure those protocols are in place. We may even end up going to walkers only, and not have cart riders, depending on the advice and guidance from public health officials. But we'll certainly do all the steps necessary to put in place a safe environment.
Okay, and another Facebook question from David. Does Golden have a specific emergency response plan for if there were to be a sudden spike of cases within city limits?
Well, we're seeing, we're seeing some areas of the country that are like that, obviously, and really, the areas that are getting the most overwhelmed are healthcare facilities. We do have plans with respect to our first responders, and that's where our interaction's probably going to come in the most. So both our Golden Fire Department and the Golden Police Department have plans in place for any increase in activity or potential of our own folks getting ill and not being able to respond. In fact, just today, we had a report from Jeffco Sheriff that all law enforcement personnel within the county will be deputized in order to be able to enforce laws and serve as peace officers in other jurisdictions. And part of that is a proactive effort so that if any one city happens to have an outbreak that their own police department can't handle, or we have members of our department that are ill and can't work, that there are other agencies that will help us out and vice versa. So there are plans in place on the public safety front to make sure that our community is adequately covered. And I can't speak to the healthcare facilities and the hospitals as to what plans they might have in place. But from a city operations standpoint, on the public safety side, I feel very good about where we're at.
Okay, and we have an email question from Karen, actually two, wanting clarification on the RTD bus service, and also what is being addressed for our homeless population.
So the RTD board met and approved a limited service. And I'm not sure what they're calling it, but basically the ridership has fallen off tremendously even before the stay-at-home order. I imagine it continues to decrease since then. And so they are taking measures to reduce service across the RTD region to better manage their workforce, as well as to reduce some of the excess hours that are being put in on rides and services that are not being used. My understanding is that it is a temporary reduction in service. It is not a new schedule that will continue forever. I don't know that there is an end date on it. I haven't seen that, just the initial date of April 19th. But that is something that RTD has put out, and there is more information on what the board voted on in particular that's available online.
And I was just looking for that plan as well. I didn't have it with me, unfortunately, but there were a number of bus routes throughout RTD's service area that would be suspended during this emergency service plan or reduction plan. And the two I mentioned that impacted Golden were the 16L and 99L. But our focus will be to make sure that those routes are reinstituted once the public health emergency is over and life starts to get back to normal. We'll want to make sure Golden continues to be served through those routes.
And then what was the other, sorry?
How is Golden addressing the homeless population during this time?
The whole metro area is really working on assisting the homeless populations. The majority of the overnight shelters, beds available are in Denver. Jefferson County does not have any shelters for the homeless, although there are programs that provide vouchers for motel rooms for families, that provide assistance for individuals to get to a shelter, and those continue. They are adding additional beds. They're adding quarantined options for homeless individuals as the numbers are needed. Most of that work is being spearheaded by Denver, since that is where the greater population is in, where the greatest services are currently available. I have not seen anything about any changes in numbers or impacts here in Golden. Some of these services that have been provided to the homeless are still available, just a little bit different. So where the church that would provide the meal once a week for the homeless, instead of it being a sit-down meal, it is now a bag, a takeout bag that is provided. So the services that we do have in Golden are making accommodations to be in accordance with the new orders. I don't know of any programs that have been discontinued for the homeless.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any that have been discontinued either. And I think this new focus on regional coordination that we've been doing in Jefferson County has helped a little bit on this front. And the biggest component, because we don't have the public shelter, as the mayor mentioned, is the voucher program. And our law enforcement officers are usually the ones who are in contact with homeless individuals, are aware of those resources and can direct folks the right way.
Okay, we have an email question from Karen, essentially an enforcement question, wondering why one of the breweries seems to be continuing to operate. Why is this allowed? Their parking lot's closed, but cars are parked out on the road out front and obviously in business.
So my understanding on that is if they're doing carryout, they're still allowed to operate. And I don't know what specific brewery or what is being allowed to be carried out, but that is my understanding of what the was mentioned in the governor's order and in some of his briefings that any establishment really is allowed to carry out alcohol as long as it's packaged up. If you have a specific concern about a specific business or entity, I would just refer that to the Jeffco Public Health Department. They're the ones looking, as I mentioned earlier, looking into the potential business violations of that order. But my understanding is that alcohol is still allowed to be carried out.
Okay, and we have a Facebook question from Suzanne. Would you please ask folks on trails to move over for others on the trail? People seem to think that just because they're outside in the fresh air, they don't need to stay apart.
Yeah, this is clearly what is being emphasized from the governor through every public health organization and us here in the city. Social distancing, the 6 feet or more is everywhere you go. It's not just in the grocery store, it's also when you're out on the trails. Public health professionals have studied how long the virus can last in the air and how far it can travel, and you do yourself and others, you put yourself and others at risk if you are too close together. So the guidelines are you are with members of your household. Between the members of your household and anyone else, you must maintain a 6 foot or greater distance, and that is everywhere that you go, inside or outside. And I know on trails, particularly if you're going out on single track trails or really narrow areas, it can get hard to stay distanced, but you need to figure it out. And if you are uncomfortable in those settings, we have some very wide concrete trails through the city that allow for 10-foot wide trails that allow for distancing a little bit easier than going on some of our narrow mountainous trails.
Okay, I have no more questions, but I do have a reminder from Councilor Hazeman to remind you that Leadership Golden is also a co-sponsor of the April 7th Candidate Forum.
Thank you,
My
Councilor
apologies,
Hazeman.
Councilor Hazeman. I should have noted that. Yes, Leadership Golden and Golden United, both involved in the Ward 4 virtual dialogue. So please take part in that.
And if you are, everybody can take part in that on the 7th, but if you are a Ward 4 resident, ballots will be sent out to you, I think, starting April 6th. So it's really good timing to hear from the candidates on the 7th. As always, you are encouraged to return your ballot early. You don't have to wait till the actual April 20, am I going to get that wrong? April 28th date? Is that the right date? But yes, Ward 4 residents only will receive ballots, and they start mailing out on the 6th.
And I have just some thank yous from people wondering if this will be a weekly briefing.
I think the mayor and I have agreed that's a good thing to continue to do, and I think this Wednesday evening works pretty well, so we'll plan to do it next week,
Yep.
Mayor, and I think it's helpful to us to hear feedback as well and get your questions.
Yeah, and please, the Guide and Golden websites that are up, the resources we point you to, we are and the city staff is doing a great job. But as we hear of new resources, new programs, like RTD just came out this week with the Citywide program for food delivery, we'll continue to make sure that those resources are put on our local pages on Guiding Golden. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of briefings from the state, the county, from us, and we will, as a city, do our best to try to cull through and make sure that the relevant information for all of you who live and work in Golden is available on our Golden pages.
And I'll allow for 30 more seconds in case there's a last-minute question out there, and you got to get it in before I finish this. But as you all have probably heard, the CARES Act that the federal government passed at the end of last week, that's one of the things, as the mayor just mentioned, that we're following very closely. We will put information out. I don't know exactly right now the logistics of that and how that's going to be distributed. What I do know is that there were some limits put on the funding and in terms of size of counties, and Jefferson County is one of the 5 in the state that will receive direct funding. So we're going to have to work through the county and the state as well on seeing what qualifies for funding in Golden, what businesses might qualify for, what our city government might qualify for, and we'll get that information out as we have it. Right now, though, I think it's still, the details of all that are still being worked out.
We do have one more question here from
Yeah,
Barb.
I'm glad I took 30 more seconds. All right.
Barb would like to know via email, the approach used for the DDA meeting worked very well last week. Will we be able to watch the April 9th and 15th meetings concerning the code rewrite the same way?
No. Different kind of meeting, not a public meeting, not a board or commission, but those meetings will be recorded, so we have record. And at this point, I am going to ask that group make the recommendation to me as to whether those should be released publicly. It's a working group, and we want them to work well together so they can be productive. And so I'm going to ask them for their recommendation on what they would like to do with their recorded meeting.
And another question on Facebook. Has Golden laid off or furloughed any city employees?
We have not. We've been fortunate in, trying to keep our workforce intact and have been as flexible as we can with our employee policies and so forth. And so up to this point, we have not. And, not knowing how long this all lasts, it's harder to predict the future, but I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that we're not in that position. I think that's all.
Well, yeah, I think hopefully everyone got their questions in. If you send it in later, we will try to address it. But thank you for all of the questions. It's great to hear what's on your minds, the things that you're interested in knowing about, and what the city is doing. There is a lot of work being done behind the scenes and with city staff, and a lot of it is in that coordination. This is not just a city issue, but working across the county, across the region, working with the state to figure out how we can best come out of this crisis, how we can get through it together, how we can keep everybody healthy and safe, and how we can plan for what happens on the other side once this first wave of the crisis is over. And so please keep the questions coming, and please stay involved. Check in, as city manager said, check in with your neighbors, help share these resources for people who have a need. There are resources available, and we can all do a better job of helping connect people to the resources that are best suited to help their specific situation. So thank you all for doing your part, staying home, supporting our businesses the best you can, and really helping each other. It's what makes Golden such a great community.
Thank you, and have a good evening.